Hi, welcome to my video on function stack for the INTJ, cognitive function stack for the INTJ. So in this video, I'm going to go through type dynamics, meaning how the different functions in the cognitive function stack of the first four functions interact. And the growth process for INTJs, the function axis, meaning the how the conscious and unconscious axis for different functions, the dichotomies and orientations. This is the basic breakdown on how the different functions shows up for an INTJ and how the INTJ uses different function. My name is Duran Nguyen, and I'm an INTJ on the Myers-Briggs system, and I am a 5 SP on the Enneagram. So in this, and I'm also a transformational coach. So I help people with, to work with people on whatever they're stuck and struggling with, and then help them come with a vision, get clear on their values, and help them become productive, empowered, and also do healing work with people in terms of emotional healing, overcoming traumas and things like that. So, all right. So the function stack for the INTJ. So before the function stack, I want to go through the introverted, intuitive thinking, judging, so what the four letters are. So the INTJ, so most profiles or websites you look at for INTJs, you probably just see the, introverts, intuitive, thinker, and judger. But to really understand how INTJs, to really decode how an INTJ works in terms of how they function and how they can show up, you really need to understand the cognitive functions, meaning what are the mental processes that the INTJ use and how those functions interact to produce the behaviors that, that are apparent in most INTJs. So the first thing to look at when you look at the four letters is the NT on the INTJs are what's generally called NT on the rationals, right? Intuitive thinkers, meaning they're very abstract, and they use thinking as a function. Thinking in terms of they use logic and reasoning when it comes to decision making, rather than paying attention to emotion and people. Basically, that's what the basis of what being an NT is. They focus very much on competence and needing to be competent in what they study and what they do and the knowledge that they study in. So an INTJ, the four letters are introverted. So once you get the four letters from whatever online test that you do, most of them are not accurate. There's no accurate online test to really show you or tell you that you are of a certain type. It's only through interacting and talking to people and answering. So I'm a trained profiler with Personality Hacker. So profiling and helping people come to a certain type in terms of really understanding what the functions that they use and how they show up is one of the things that I do as well. So, all right, let me see how I can best approach this. So the function stack, right? If you look at these are the things that I'm going to cover in this video on the right here. I think I better start with function axes of dichotomies. Basically, dichotomies. The dichotomies are what the letters are indicating. So there are four dichotomies, right? So according to Jung, he comes up with introvert, extrovert, introversion, extroversion, and then intuition, thinking. So introversion, extroversion is about understanding how you manage your energy. That's number one. And then how it's like whether your inner world is the real world or your outer world is the real world. I'm sorry about this. Outer world is the real world. For the introvert, the inner world is the real world, meaning their ideas, their inner sensing are more real to them than the external world. And for the extroverts, the external world where they can engage is more real to them. So the IE is one portion of the dichotomy, right? Introversion, extroversion. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert, this is how you manage your energy, how you recharge. As an introvert, recharge by going inward, and extrovert recharge by engaging with the external world. That includes people, right? And then you have the intuition, sensing. This is the learning function, learning dichotomy, meaning this is whether you use your intuition as a learning function or whether you prefer. There's no real clear distinction between whether you're an intuitive or sensing, whether you use intuition or sensing, right? So for people who prefer sensing, that's why when you prefer a certain function as your preferred function, it's not that you don't use the other end of the dichotomy, right? You use both, but it's which one you're naturally wired to use more of and in a more functional developed way. So the next dichotomy is thinking and feeling. So whether you use logic, objective facts to back up your decision, or whether you use feeling, ethics, values when it comes to people and emotion as one of the decision making, I think, criteria that you use to back up your decision making. So this is the thinking. Feeling is the decision making dichotomy, and then you have the judging and perceiving. So meaning what a judger is they need to organize the other world. So it shows your organization, your energy management. So not thinkers, INTJs need to organize the outer world so that they can be free. So if you look at the function, they lead with NI, which is introverted intuition. That's their dominant preferred function, because that's their main dominant process, right? It's a learning function. They need to organize their outer world so that they can be free to perceive, to learn, right? Perceivers need freedom in the external world because that's how they learn. So they extrovert their learning functions. So if this is very confusing for you, don't worry about it. I'll probably continue to make different videos to help you understand like how to work out different the functional stack for different types. So for INTJ, this is what I'm going through for the INTJ to explain to you and share with you how the functions come about on the stack from the 4 letters. So the 4 letters is just a way of decoding how certain types use certain functions and in what position on the stack they fall in. So the INTJ uses introverted. So being a judger, right? They use introverted intuition. They extrovert their judging, meaning their judging function, either T or F, right? For an INTJ, they prefer thinking. So their thinking function is going to be extroverted. And their intuition is going to be introverted. And the I, the first letter, tells you which function that you lead with, right? If your letter starts with I, that's for an INTJ, you lead with an introverted process, right? You lead with an introverted process because the judging function is extroverted. Automatically, the intuitive, the perceiving function, which is the learning function, which is introverted intuition for the INTJ, is going to be introverted. It's going to be the first function, the dominant function. So, and then the auxiliary function is going to be extroverted thinking. And then you're going to flip the other 2, right? So this is the judging axis, which is a conscious axis. When I say axis, it just means that they fall on the same, I guess, line. Let me see which one I can use. So this is the judging axis or conscious axis. And the other one is the perceiving axis. So on the perceiving axis, the dominant function NI, and then the inferior function SE is going to be always trying to pull each other. So there's going to be tension between the two functions. And then on the judging axis, the TE and FI is going to be, there's going to be tension between the two functions. So they're always going to be connected. It's called polarity. So the term polarity refers to the opposite end of the dichotomy and opposite in orientation. So orientation is whether you're introverted or whether you are extroverted, right? So the orientation is how, like which direction the function is turning towards. So introverted intuition means the function is turning inward, right? That's how you perceive internally. And extroverted sensing is the sensing function is turned outward. That's where you get information. That's how we use all our five senses to, it's going to be more than five, but mainly the five senses to receive information, right? So the judging axis and the judging axis is the auxiliary tertiary axis, and then the dominant NISE axis is the perceiving axis. All right, so so that's the function axis done, and dichotomy is done, orientation done. Type dynamics is to talk about, let me see. So I'm gonna just get rid of this. So type dynamics just means how the different functions interact. So the term polarity, I was talking about polarity. So polarity is a term that is used by, that came up, that was coined by Antonia Dodge from Personality Hacker. That's where I first heard it from, and that's what she said. So, you know, all credits to her. I didn't come up with it. So polarity means difference in dichotomy, meaning intuition, sensing, dichotomy, and different, opposite in polarity, meaning if intuition turns inward, the sensing is going to turn outward, right? NI, introverted intuition, SE, extroverted sensing. And the same with the judging axis, opposite in dichotomy, TE, FI, right? Thinking and feeling axis, and then TE turning outward, extroverted thinking, means the feeling end of the dichotomy is going to turn inward, meaning introverted feeling, right? So how I've noticed, how I've observed in myself, as well as the INTJs that I've interacted with, and my friends, and also people that I've coached, is they show up in the way that, how do I best explain this? You know, I also talk about this in another video, which is the one that I just did, in the loop video. So if you want to understand or hear more about the type dynamics, how different loops interact, or different functions interact to create a loop, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, go watch that video. There should be a description. The link should be in the description underneath the video. So so the introverted intuition is a perceiving function. So every INTJ will have the main function as the perceiving function. That's what they lead with. That's what unconsciously they're competent in. So it's basically how you unconsciously function. That's a dominant function. It's very unconscious, right? So the NISE axis is also the unconscious axis, because it's a unconscious. They both are very unconscious compared to. I don't want to go really deep into this for this video. But the main thing to know is that NISE is related and TFI is going to be related and tied together. So introverted intuition is the perceiving function. So you get insights, you get ideas, you'll be able to shift perspective, understand different things from different people's perspective. Being able to empathize is one of the, I guess, benefits of using NI, because you'll be able to go into another person's perspective, understand their point of view, like how they, if you know about how their past and how they grow up, you can generally, discern different patterns and understand their experience, basically. So it's about pattern recognition. It's not about the detail, but it's going meta. So understanding other people's perspective, experience, to be able to help them solve the problems, to be able to come up with solutions for them, is one of the strengths of NI. to be able to use NI symbolically, using symbols, using archetypes, using different models, is one of the strengths of NI. So, and TE, extroverted thinking, is the auxiliary function. It's like if you can look at, oops. So extroverted thinking, the second function, on the higher on the stack, right? After NI, dominant is extroverted thinking. Let me just use this. Okay, extroverted thinking. So we talk about NI, and extroverted thinking is the logic-based, time-based. So NI is also a time. When I say time-based function, it has to do with timeline. So NI is a future-based function, right? If you look at the four functions, SE and NE are generally based. SE is based in the present, and NE is based in the present as well as, but it goes meta in terms of recognizing patterns and abstract patterns. But it can also go a little bit into the future. But NI is the function that goes the furthest in the future, and has the ability to do that, and future cast and future project, and future pace. Whereas SI, the four, I'm talking about the four perceiving functions. So SI is based in the past because it's all about remembering the details, and what worked in the past, and preserving memories from the past, and it's about tradition, and preserving the comfortability, right, so that we can function as a society. So TE is a judging function, is a decision-making function, and it's a external world-based function. So there is a, so I just got distracted by noise. Yeah, if you drive with NI, that will happen a lot, is you're very sensitive to your environment. Anything that, I guess any interaction can typically jar you into losing your train of thought. So that can happen a lot if you drive with NI. And you notice that happening in my videos when I'm talking, right? So I need a lot of visual prompts to help me remember, to keep me on track of what I'm sharing, the ideas that I'm sharing. Otherwise, I can easily lose my train of thought. That happens a lot in conversations. Before I understand I'm INTJ, I used to get frustrated a lot because I thought there's something wrong with me, because I can't communicate in normally, like, I'm not normal in the way that I can articulate or communicate. I'm sorry about this. And articulate and communicate. So basically, yeah. So I'm talking about TE, which is the extroverted thinking function. So TE is all about, real world result and feedback, and testing what works. So NIT combined works in a way that it goes into the future to create systems and solutions, by recognizing current patterns of problems, and I think preventing future problems. So that's the way NIT can show up for most INTJs, is in problem solving, creating sustainable solutions for the future. So INTJs are I think the higher in the value of most INTJs would be efficiency, effectiveness. Efficiency mainly because they need to save energy. As introverted intuitives, we have extroverted sensing as the inferior function. You can see from the diagram here, or whatever you want to call this thing I'm doing. Yeah. So most INTJs have limited energy in a sense that because our, I guess, nervous system, in the way that we process and function in the real time in our body, is very different from people who have extroverted sensing as a dominant or secondary function, right? Because we're generally based in our head and in the realm of ideas, we can lose touch with reality in a sense that we can lose touch with our body. So we have, I think most INTJs will have challenges around physicality, being physical, being present in the body, becoming aware of being aware of the surrounding. Sorry about this, because this is a bug and hasn't been fixed by the software that I'm using. So, so every time it comes up, it distracts me and I lose my train of thought. So I was talking about SE and I. So extroverted sensing not being lower on the stack for the INTJ. So most INTJs struggle with being aware of their surrounding. Most INTJs will have grown up accident prone, having a lot of like bumping into things, having a lot of like physical injuries and a lot of fears around their physicality and being physical. They will have challenges around, playing sports or being athletic in general. They will be very clumsy because they are very low, even though they're high intelligence in the way that intelligence is defined, in terms of being able to logically think through different things and being able to like process abstract ideas and come up with different abstract ideas and seeing like patterns that are not obvious to most people. But they can be very low in bodily intelligence in the multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner. So I guess that's what I want to say about SE. And then the FI is the introverted feeling function. So because of the development, because of its, I think the nature of its development up to I think a 10-year-old child's maturity, most INTJ will struggle with their feelings, knowing what they're feeling, understanding their emotions. So they can be very protective because they generally have a very sensitive emotional core. They are very protective of that core, and which is why most INTJs can be very cold and harsh and blunt, and I think keep people at a distance because they don't want to get hurt. They can get hurt very easily. I'm a very emotional person. Plus, I'm an HSP, which is in highly sensitive person, right? That means my nervous system is the way that I process information, my sensory data is more, I guess, it's different than most people would be. So there would be the 20% of the population who can be HSP. So I struggle a lot growing up with like being emotional, but don't know how to deal with emotion, plus being a man or being a boy, right? Being a man and growing up in an environment where manhood is defined by not crying and not being emotional and being, basically tough, being physical and sporty. So there's a lot of challenges that I grew up with in terms of like really knowing my value as a human being, as a man, and it's pretty much tied to not being tough or man enough, right? So anyways, that's another story. I can go into that in another video. But right now, let's get back to introverted feeling. So the introverted feeling function is, I think you get the most bang for your buck if you focus on working introverted feeling and extroverted thinking axis. So the way that shows up for me, for most people that I work with, is because of the emotional, I guess, sensitive nature of the emotional core. They protect their emotion. To protect their emotion, meaning to self-esteem. If you haven't really worked out your values, what you believe about yourself, like how you add value, and really differentiate between what your ideas are and what you are, who you are as a human being, right? So we tend to get attached to our ideas and think that if people reject or don't approve of our ideas, then we feel rejected, right? That's how it generally tends to show up, is attachment to our ideas and how those ideas being rejected, and we make it mean that we are not good enough, right, as human beings. So to really work through this issue and to really become more authentic, to be able to share ideas and implement ideas in the real world and get feedback and create value for people and to have an impact, which is why I named the channel Insights to Impact. Insight is the NI and an impact is the TE, creating solutions, right? So Insights to Impact means you are very healthily looping between NI and TE, right? Every time you have an insight, you create a solution. You create basically something tangible from that insight so that it can be beneficial to people, to systems, to countries, basically. So if your FI is wounded or not strong enough, then your ability to implement your ideas is going to be inhibited because all you're focusing on is protecting your ego, right? This is the ego spot. Then your TE, the ability to use your extroverted thinking function to really implement and track your goals and accomplish your goals and smash your goals, is going to be inhibited by your ability, I guess, your need to quote unquote protect yourself or protect your ego so that you don't get hurt, you don't feel bad about yourself, you don't feel bad about your ideas, right? So TE, according to Personality Hacker, it's CAR model, right? I think it's the most effective way of really understanding this. If you are confused by all these internal intuition and extrovert thinking and ITE, then go look at Personality Hacker's CAR model on INTJ, and that will give you a better understanding, and then you can start to deep dive into the functions if you want to. But yeah, so people who are watching this video, if you're watching this video and you're familiar with the functions, then that's fine. If you're just starting to learn about what being an INTJ means, then don't let these confuse you. And I guess there's like a barrier of entry to studying MBTI, really understanding about yourself. And most people get stuck in the functions. So which is why I want to make more videos on functions and how to use functions to help you grow. So I guess that's all I want to say in terms of the function stack and type dynamics and growth. So for growth, really need to focus on TE, but not only just TE by itself, but combine that with working on healing FI woundings, meaning there could be like past traumas that you've had. It could be because of bullying, right? I've been through experiences of like bullying in childhood or high school because of just the way that I am in not being able to, I guess, communicate myself, share my ideas, plus being, having a lot of fears around being physical. So I guess most INTJs tend to get picked on for being nerdy because of their intelligence, because of their natural way of thinking, and because most people fear what's different, right? So people would tend to fear and reject what they don't know. So INTJ, when they are kids or when they're young, can be mysterious for people to understand. So which is why I'm passionate about this and sharing these, I guess, using personality types to understand yourself, understand people. If you're a parent, it's very important to help your child or your children understand themselves, accept themselves, so that they have a healthy self-esteem. So the problems that we have in the world today are because of, I guess, traumas and because of the self-estrangement, so self-rejection, right? Not being able to fully accept yourself and love yourself. So you tend to project and blame people or deal with it in a unhealthy, dysfunctional ways. So this is what I'm passionate about, is helping people understand themselves, work through healing, through the woundings and things like that, so that they can be healthy, productive, and can contribute to whatever gift that they're here to give the world, right? So I'm all about breaking the chain of these low self-esteem, breaking the chain of unconsciousness, raising awareness about yourself through understanding your personality type, to understanding your strengths, fully accepting your strengths, and using those strengths to, because different types, different people bring different strengths, they add value in different ways, because every type is needed. Every person has something of value to offer to the humanity, collectively. So it's about understanding and accepting each other. If you don't accept yourself, you can't accept people, other people. So it starts with self-acceptance, self-approval, to really fully actualize your potential and to be able to work together for the betterment of yourself, your family, your country, whatever it is that you want to contribute to, and to fully actualize your potential. So anyway, so this is my video on function stack. Let me know what's useful, what's not useful, what you want to hear more of, what you are interested in learning when it comes to personal development and growth. There should be a link for Facebook group for you to join. I'm very active in there, and I will be creating more resources to help people understand what being an INTJ means, and how to do the healing work if you're wounded and need healing, how to recognize it when you need healing, and how to become more healthy, more mature, more developed, so that you can give your gift and live the lifestyle you want to live and be free as a human being. So as an INTJ, you have a lot to offer because of the nature of the function that you drive with, right? Introverted intuition, which is very unconscious. It's the most unconscious. It's connected to, depending on how woo you want to go, it's connected to the collective unconscious. It's connected to different things that we can't see. I'm not going to go there in this video, but if you're interested, let me know, and I can share more about that in later videos. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and connect with me in Facebook, in the Facebook group, and check out the resources. And I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.